Story 1. The Whispering Woods. It was a crisp autumn evening when Alex and his two buddies, Mark and Jordan, decided to escape the hustle of city life for a weekend camping trip in the remote forests of the Pacific Northwest. They had heard tales of the area's untouched beauty, miles of dense pines stretching into the horizon, and the promise of solitude away from the crowds. Little did they know, the woods held secrets far older and darker than any trail map could reveal. They arrived at the trailhead just as the sun dipped below the treetops, casting long shadows that danced like fingers across the dirt path. Alex, the most experienced camper among them, led the way with a heavy backpack slung over his shoulders. Mark carried the tent, and Jordan hauled the cooking gear. They hiked for about 2 hours before finding a clearing near a babbling creek, perfect for setting up camp. The air was thick with the scent of pine needles and damp earth, and the only sounds were the rustle of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. As night fell, they built a fire, its flames crackling and popping in the stillness. They shared stories of past adventures, hiking mishaps, wildlife encounters, but nothing too eerie. Alex had always been the skeptic, dismissing ghost stories as products of overactive imaginations. Mark, on the other hand, enjoyed a good thrill, and Jordan was somewhere in between, open-minded but cautious. Around midnight, as the fire died down to embers, they retreated to their tent. The forest seemed to close in around them, the trees forming a natural barrier that muffled the outside world. Alex lay awake for a while, listening to the wind whisper through the branches. It sounded almost like voices, faint and indistinct, but he chalked it up to fatigue and drifted off. He awoke to a strange sensation, a chill that seeped through his sleeping bag despite the mild weather. Glancing at his watch, it was 3:17 a.m. Mark and Jordan were still asleep, their breathing steady. But outside, something felt off. The wind had picked up, and those whispers? They were clearer now, like murmurs from a conversation just out of reach. Curious, Alex unzipped the tent flap and peered into the darkness. The moon cast a silvery glow over the clearing, illuminating the trees in stark relief. Nothing seemed amiss at first, but then he heard it. A low, guttural whisper that seemed to come from the edge of the woods. "Leave now," it hissed, the words blending with the rustle of leaves. He froze, heart pounding. It had to be the wind playing tricks, or maybe an animal. He scanned the tree line but saw only shadows. Shaking his head, he zipped the tent back up and tried to sleep, dismissing it as his mind wandering. The next morning, over a quick breakfast of oatmeal, Alex mentioned the whispers to the others. Mark laughed it off. Probably just the creek echoing or something. Forests can be weird at night. Jordan nodded, though he looked a bit uneasy. They decided to hike deeper into the woods that day, exploring an old logging trail that promised scenic views. As they trekked, the forest grew denser, the path narrower. Ancient trees loomed overhead, their bark twisted and gnarled like arthritic hands. About midday, they stumbled upon an abandoned cabin, its roof caved in and walls overgrown with vines. Curiosity got the better of them, and they poked around. Inside, the floor was littered with debris, rusted tools, faded newspapers from the 1920s, and what looked like claw marks etched into the wooden beams. "Loggers must have used this back in the day," Alex said, examining a dusty ledger on a shelf. The pages were yellowed, entries detailing timber hauls and worker logs, but one entry caught his eye. "Heard voices again last night. The woods are angry. Jenkins gone missing." The date was October 15th, 1923. Mark shrugged. "Old ghost stories to scare the new guys. Classic." But Jordan pointed out the claw marks. Those don't look like animal scratches, too deliberate. They left the cabin feeling a subtle unease, but the daylight bolstered their spirits. By evening, they returned to camp, exhausted but exhilarated. As they settled in, the whispers returned, each louder this time. Not just one voice, but several, overlapping in a cacophony that echoed through the trees. Go. Away. Intruders. Alex stepped out again, flashlight in hand. The beam cut through the night, revealing nothing but empty forest. But as he swept it across the ground, he noticed footprints, bare human feet, circling their tent. They hadn't been there earlier. His blood ran cold. "Guys, wake up," he called, his voice shaky. Mark and Jordan emerged, rubbing their eyes. When they saw the prints, the color drained from their faces. "What the hell?" Mark muttered. They decided to pack up and leave at first light, but sleep was impossible. The whispers grew insistent, now accompanied by faint laughter, like children playing a cruel game. Branches snapped in the distance, as if something or someone was circling them. At dawn, they broke camp hastily. As they hiked back, the forest seemed to watch them, the trees leaning in closer. Halfway to the trailhead, Jordan tripped over a root and twisted his ankle. They stopped to bandage it, but that's when the whispers turned to screams, agonized wails that pierced the morning air. Panic set in. They pushed on, Jordan limping between them. The path twisted unnaturally, leading them in circles. Hours passed and the trailhead never appeared. The sun climbed high, then began to dip. Exhaustion clawed at them. Finally, as dusk approached, they burst out onto the road, gasping for breath. The whispers faded behind them. Back in the car, they drove in silence, vowing never to speak of it. But weeks later, Alex heard the whispers again. In his dreams, in the wind, outside his window. The woods hadn't let them go, they never do. Story 2, the forgotten campground deep in the Appalachian Mountains where fog clings to the valleys like a shroud. Tom and his companions, Ryan and Chris, sought refuge from their mundane routines. They chose a forgotten campground, one not marked on modern maps, recommended by an old-timer at a gas station. "Quiet as the grave," he'd said with a wink. They laughed it off, eager for the isolation. The drive wound through narrow roads, flanked by overgrown foliage, the canopy blocking out the sky. They arrived at sunset, the site a cluster of weathered picnic tables and fire pits overgrown with weeds. No other campers in sight, just the three of them and the endless wilderness. They pitched their tent near a dried-up pond, its surface cracked like shattered glass. Tom, the planner, organized the site while Ryan gathered firewood and Chris scouted the area. As night descended, stars pierced the black sky, unpolluted by city lights. They sat around the fire, the warmth warding off the encroaching chill. Conversation flowed easily at first, work woes, future plans. But as the flames flickered low, silence settled. That's when Tom heard it. A faint scratching, like nails on wood, coming from the pond's edge. He dismissed it as wildlife, perhaps a raccoon. But it persisted, rhythmic and deliberate. Ryan heard it too. "Sounds like someone's digging," he joked uneasily. They investigated with flashlights, beams sweeping the ground. Near the pond, they found fresh dirt mounds, as if something had been unearthed. Chris kicked at one, revealing a rusted metal sign half buried. "Campground closed, unsafe conditions, 1957. "Probably landslides or something," Tom said, though a knot formed in his stomach. They returned to the tent, but sleep evaded them. The scratching resumed, closer now, right outside the fabric walls. In the dead of night, Ryan unzipped the flap. The moon illuminated the site, and there by the fire pit stood a figure, tall and shadowy, its form indistinct. It turned toward them, eyes glinting like embers. A low moan escaped it, echoing across the campground. They slammed the flap shut, hearts racing. "What was that?" Chris whispered. The figure didn't approach, but the scratching intensified, now accompanied by whispers. Names, dates, pleas for help. Morning brought relief. The site looked normal, no signs of disturbance. They laughed nervously, blaming shadows and imagination. But as they explored further, they found old tent stakes driven into trees, forming a circle around their camp. Inside the circle, the ground was barren, grass refusing to grow. Deeper in the woods, they discovered ruins, collapsed cabins from the 50s, doors hanging off hinges. Inside one, faded photos on the walls showed campers smiling, but one image chilled them. A group photo with faces scratched out, except for 3 figures in the background, watching. The whispers returned that afternoon clearer. "Stay, join us." Branches rustled without wind and shadows lengthened unnaturally. By evening, they decided to leave. But as they packed, the figure reappeared. Not one, but several encircling the site. Moans turned to cries, tales of a long-ago flood that drowned the campground's visitors, their spirits trapped, seeking company. They fled into the night, flashlights bobbing, the path twisted, leading them astray. Hours blurred into terror, the ghost's whispers guiding them deeper. Finally, at dawn, they stumbled onto the road, battered and breathless. Back home, the scratching followed. In walls, in dreams. The forgotten campground never forgets its guests. Story 3. Shadows of the summit high in the Rockies, where peaks pierce the clouds. Mike and his friends, Dave and Sam, embarked on a challenging camping expedition. They aimed for a remote summit campsite, known for its breathtaking views and perilous trails. Veterans of many hikes, they relished the test.
The ascent took all day, switchbacks winding through boulder fields and alpine meadows. By dusk, they reached the plateau, a flat expanse ringed by jagged rocks. They set up camp, the wind howling like a distant train. The air was thin, crisp, carrying the scent of snow from higher elevations. As they huddled in their tent, protected from the elements, Dave shared legends he'd read, tales of miners lost in blizzards, their ghosts wandering the heights. Mike scoffed. Superstitions for the unprepared. Sam remained quiet, gazing at the starry sky. That night, a storm rolled in unexpectedly. Thunder rumbled, lightning flashing across the peaks. Amid the chaos, Mike heard footsteps, heavy boots crunching on gravel, circling the tent. He peered out, rain lashing his face. Silhouettes moved in the flashes, figures in old mining gear, pickaxes slung over shoulders. Their faces were gaunt, eyes hollow. Terrified, he woke the others. The footsteps grew louder, accompanied by clinking tools and muffled voices. Gold. Lost. Help us dig. The tent shook as if hands gripped the poles. They barricaded themselves, praying for dawn. The ghosts recounted their fate, a cave-in trapping them, their bodies never recovered. When the storm cleared, the site was pristine, no footprints. But as they descended, the shadows followed, appearing in peripheral vision, whispering demands. Halfway down, Sam slipped, hanging from a ledge. As Mike and Dave pulled him up, a ghostly hand seemed to push him back, then relent. They reached safety, but the shadows lingered in mirrors, in dark corners. The summit claims its own, forever.